Political uncertainty in Thailand after the Constitutional Court removes the Prime Minister for breaching ethical standards. A week ago, it dissolved the main opposition party. How big a role does politics play in these decisions, and could they lead to renewed turmoil in Thailand? This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm James Bays. Thailand's democracy is entering another phase. In the past week, the Constitutional Court has dismissed the Prime Minister and ordered the dissolution of the main opposition party, which won last year's election. Both decisions come at a time when the economy is sluggish and many Thais are frustrated by the political process. Thailand's democracy has been fragile for decades, with governments overthrown by the generals who remain in the wings. So what does this latest turmoil mean for the country? We'll discuss all of this with our panel of guests in just a moment. But first, this report from Victoria Gatenby.
Thailand's Constitutional Court ruling Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin should be removed from office. Afterwards, he questioned the verdict but promised to abide by it.
I respect the decision of the Constitutional Court, but I want to affirm that throughout my almost 1 year tenure as Prime Minister, I've tried to do everything correctly. I am genuinely committed to my work, which I have done with honesty and integrity.
Close connections to the Shinawatra family propelled Srettha into power last year after the unelected Senate blocked election winners, the Progressive Move Forward Party, from forming a government. But on Wednesday, the court ruled he had grossly violated ethical standards by appointing a minister who'd been jailed for contempt of court. The judgment comes a week after it ordered the dissolution of the Move Forward Party.
On the bigger picture, of course, even though we are no longer under a military government, the question that many analysts and people in society are posing is whether we have transitioned from a military to a judicial coup.
Thailand is the second largest economy in Southeast Asia after Indonesia, but economic growth is sluggish, with weak exports and consumer spending, and more than 1 million businesses unable to access loans.
Just look at the economy now. Look at the day when the Move Forward Party was dissolved. Business was very quiet. I think if politics continues like this, the economy won't be able to grow.
It depends on the parliament, on who they choose as the new Prime Minister, and what their thoughts are. We are just citizens waiting for answers from above.
Some analysts say the events of the past week show Thailand is no longer a democratic country.
When 9 people unelected by the population, can destroy political party, can disqualify the government, can change the cabinet, right? It makes the election that we just had last year meaningless.
The governing coalition has nominated Paetongtarn Shinawatra as the new Prime Minister. She's the leader of Pheu Thai, the biggest party in the government, and daughter of former leader Thavisin Shinawatra. But the appointment of a new Prime Minister in a backroom deal has left many Thais deeply frustrated. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Well, our guests today have extensive experience of Thai politics from very different perspectives. From Bangkok, we're joined by Kasit Piromya, who served as Foreign Minister of Thailand between 2008 and 2011. He's also a board member of the ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights. In London, Verapat Pariyawong, a public policy advisor and former special counsel to the Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand. And also in Bangkok, Sunai Phasuk, a senior researcher on Thailand at Human Rights Watch. He specialises in political, security and foreign policy analysis of Thailand. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us today. An important moment for your country. I know that Thailand looks like it might have a new Prime Minister very soon. But first, Kasit, I'd like to talk about what happened to the old one, if you don't mind. 2 rulings by the Constitutional Court in the space of a week, sacking Prime Minister Srettha and disbanding the most popular party which won the election last year but was never allowed to govern. This doesn't reflect very well on your country, does it?
Definitely, but I think one has to go back to the Constitution. which was not democratic. It was semi-authoritarian and semi-democratic. So the rules and regulation and so on doesn't reflect the wishes of the people to go for full democratization. So the military establishment, the royalists, the conservative, came out with a constitution that limited the participatory democracy.
Sunai, you're there in Bangkok. Can you give us a feeling on the streets? Are people shocked by these two constitutional court rulings? What are you picking up?
Well, the general mood was considering the rulings of the Constitutional Court something equal to a judicial coup, that the rulings of the Constitutional Court overthrew the elected prime minister, sacking the entire cabinet, and then the election winner Move Forward Party, which represent the over 14 million votes and act as the main opposition party in the parliament, was also removed from office and disbanded. So now the country is left without the executive branch and also the opposition, which perform as essential check and balance in democratic rule. So this is shocking, this is outrageous and disappointing.
If we look at the last 2 decades in Thailand, let me try and summarise it simply. It's been governed, in terms of who's governing it, by 2 different blocks. Until 2006, Thaksin Shinawatra, energetic billionaire businessman, he was the prime minister, deposed by the military in 2006. And since then, it's either been the military or a military-backed government or someone who is allied with Mr. Shinawatra. I think that's right, isn't it, Verapat? And the latest of those was the Prime Minister, Srettha, who has now been sacked. What are the reasons that they gave for sacking him, and do you believe they stack up?
Well, I have to echo Kun Kasit's comment that it goes back to the constitution, which I don't consider to be a proper constitution. Kun Kasit's very kind to say it's anti-democratic. I think it's completely anti-democratic, and the way you phrase it is quite correct. It's either the authoritarian regime or Thaksin's allies. It's not because Kun Thaksin is the only special person that Thai people vote for, but because prior to the emergence of the new parties, the Move Forward, Future Forward, and now People's Party, Thaksin and Pheu Thai Party, the party that is the party in charge today, is the main party that's supposed to fight against these establishments. Now, the equation is starting to change because once we have these newer parties emerging, which is seen to be more progressive, some accuse them of being anti-monarchist, which I don't agree with. Now, it makes it more interesting. It adds flavor to the dish, isn't it? Because Thaksin's allied party, Pheu Thai Party that is no longer the only one standing against military dictatorship. It's in a way, Pheu Thai Party is now a bit more conservative vis-a-vis the new kid on the block.
That's interesting, but just on the point I made, or the point I asked about the outgoing Prime Minister, the one that was sacked, he was actually part of those 2 blocks. He was Thaksin's man. Why did he get sacked? Apparently, he'd violated the rules of ethics with a display of defiant behaviour. Does that stack up to you, the reasons for his sacking?
Well, it certainly does, and I was just about to explain that, because now we have three alternatives, right? We have the military establishment, we have Pheu Thai, and we have the new kid on the block. Now, the way the court thinks about this is, whoever is not going to satisfy the pleasure of the establishment, i.e., in other words, you need to comply with the so-called fiscal discipline policy of the establishment, or you must not touch on the sensitive issue of lèse majesté law. Then there's a way to tame these populist or these people-backed parties, Srettha, although he's not touching on the lèse majesté law that protects the king. he is engaging in a very aggressive economic policy to boost up the Thai economy. And that is probably one of the reasons why he's removed. Now, I understand, James, there are theories being thrown around that, oh, perhaps they want to remove Srettha, so Ing Paetongtarn, the daughter of Thaksin, can come up. I don't buy that argument at all. And if you want me to explore that, I'll be very pleased to add.
OK, you mentioned lèse majesté there. Kasit, maybe you can help us here, because some of us don't know, I do, but some of us don't know that French term, which means so much in Thai politics. Just explain what the lèse majesté laws are.
I think one has to start from Article 6 of the present Constitution, which stipulates that the institution of the monarchy or the very personality of the monarch is not to be violated. And the Article 112 of the Criminal Code is somewhat sort of an organic law, you know, to protect the sanctity of the institution of the monarchy. And I think the protection of the head of state, whether a president or a king, is quite common in every country. But the lèse majesté law, the protection of the monarch in Thailand, has a lot of, I think, shortcomings. And at times it was being used for political purposes. And I think the intention of the move forward, okay, as far as I learned, is to amend it to make sure on how to enforce the law. For example, in Norway or in many of the European monarchies, a citizen cannot bring about the case to the court to charge the other citizen of improper behavior towards the monarch. It's only the government that has to act on behalf of the Norwegian king, you know, to bring the whole matter to the court of justice. But in Thailand, it has been a practice all along that if I don't like any Thai citizen, I can charge him with lèse majesté. So it has become a sort of it can be a personal vendetta. It can be weaponized and so on. And I think the move forward
Sunai represents Human Rights Watch. So I want to bring him in and see how this actually, how it affects people in terms of arrests, in terms of what the government has been doing with regard to this. How many people have been charged under this, and how long are the sentences that people have received?
Well, James, the trend is very worrying that since the rise of democracy movement in about 2020, in the middle of 2020, there have been over 200 people charged with royal insult, which, to reiterate that what Kasit just said, royal insult is one of the most criminal offenses in Thailand. It carries penalty between 3 to 15 years prison term. So the minimum penalty starts with 3 years imprisonment. And among those 200 people charged with royal insult, there are children included. Many of them have been locked up in jail waiting the trial. And one youth activist recently died during this lengthy pre-trial detention. And regardless of promises by former Prime Minister Srettha and the upcoming, likely to be the new Prime Minister of Thailand, Paetongtarn, Shinawatra, both of them promised to support the opposition party's agenda to reform the law. But when they came to office, when Srettha came to office, he did nothing. And now it is likely that the new Prime Minister is not going to do anything, is not going to fulfill her own electoral promises about reforming the law, keeping it in line with international human rights and legal standards. They are not going to do anything, which means repression will continue and Thailand will continue to be a closed society where the monarchy remains the taboo that cannot be discussed, that cannot be questioned.
So, Sunai, just to be clear to me, so I'm absolutely clear, I am a British citizen. I haven't lived there for a long time, but I'm a British citizen. And if I was in the UK, I could say, we don't want a king anymore. We don't want a king. We want a republic. And that would be classed as free speech. If I was to say that in Thailand, what would happen to me?
Well, it is likely that someone, because royal insult is treated as crimes against the state under the Thai law, which means anyone can file complaint against you, and they can file it anywhere in the country, and it doesn't matter where you made that comment, whether you make it in Thailand or make it abroad, make it online, they can still file criminal complaint against you. And the penalty, as I said, is very harsh, beginning with 3 years in prison, and they count it as how many times you made such commentary. So if you made 3, 4, 5 commentaries about the monarchy in a negative way, in an insulting way, you can multiply that, use kind of basic mathematics, that starting from 3 years imprisonment by 4, by 5 times. So now we have someone who basically posted a joke that made fun of the current king by foreign TV program. He is now serving 15 years prison term in Thailand.
That's very sobering. Verapat, you mentioned earlier on that there are now 3 blocks, not 2, that we have this new progressive bloc. Now, that party was disbanded last week, but previously there was another party. So there was one party, and then the Move Forward Party replaced it. Now I believe it's changing its name again. So it's not disappearing. What's happening to its support, though? Are those people still being supported by people on the streets?
Yes, according to news reports, within just a few days of relaunching the People's Party, they managed to secure incoming donations and membership applications. So I think the voters of Future Forward, Move Forward, and now the new party called the People's Party will continue to support the party anyway. What is very important in this current situation is, how does the leadership of the new People's Power Party deal with the fact that they've been disbanded twice? Are they going to repeat the same techniques, same methods of communication, and face another round of disband so they can they have to make a 4th party for the 4th time? Now it goes back to my earlier point, James, that Pheu Thai also faced something similar. Before there was Pheu Thai, the current party in charge. They were disbanded. Thai Rak Thai disbanded, People's Power disbanded, and now it becomes Pheu Thai. So they learn through that experience, they learn that there are some things they want to do, but they can't do. Whether that's right or wrong, you can debate. I'm not happy with the situation either, but Pheu Thai decides to focus on economy and let the people grow through economic policies. Now, the new kid on the block, People's Party, I think the idea is, with social justice, equality, reform of less majeste law, people could be empowered. That sounds great, but whether the courts and the establishment and what Kasit called, the semi-autocratic constitution will allow them to achieve that target remains a big question.
OK, well, I'm going to put that question to Kasit, because it's not just the lèse majesté law, is it, in their agenda, in their proposals, that upsets people. Let me give you some of the other things. They wanted to put the military under civilian leadership. They want to end conscription. They want to break up monopolies. They want to decentralise power. They want to institute elected governorships. They want to overhaul the education system. And the thing you've all been referring to all the time, they want to revise the constitution.
I think we have to go back to the year 1932.
That's a long way.
At the end of the absolute monarchy. Yeah, long way, but I think the issue still remains to this very day. Namely, the struggle, I think, between 3 parties. One is the military establishment. Second is the conservative elements. And third, a sort of liberal progressive forces. throughout the 1930s, 40s, and then came the challenges forthcoming from the Communist Party of Thailand and international communism. Okay, and in between we have protests, we have constitutional writing, we have coup d'etat. And then finally, we did have a constitution in 1997 that was deemed to be very democratic, pushing back the military into the barracks. Then came the political abuses and corruption and so on that led to street protests and military intervention at least 2 times during the past, I think, 10, 15 years and so on. And with the general elections on the 14th of May last year, the Move Forward Party or the Future movement and so on unexpectedly won 14 million votes. The election before, they have 7 million votes. So suddenly they got 14 million votes. They defeated every other political party. So with that, the sort of old traditional parties like the Pheu Thai, the Democrat, some of the military-backed political party, Phum Chai Thai, all of this and so on, they got together in order to defend themselves and try to defeat the Move Forward, which they have succeeded.
And they succeeded. They succeeded in that. Yeah, they succeeded in that, and they will succeed again, it seems, with a new Prime Minister at the head of this. Verapat, that new Prime Minister is the former Prime Minister Thaksin's daughter. His sister, her aunt, has previously served as Prime Minister, yet both of those were deposed in military coups. Tell us what you think her chances are. And I know you know her. You went to university with her.
Well, we went to the same university in the same year, although different schools. I went to law, she went to political science. Yes, we expect Paetongtarn Shinawatra, Ung daughter of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, to be selected, to be voted in as the new PM for Thailand. Now, interesting fact, James, when her father Thaksin was removed and when her aunt was removed, we didn't have the Future Forward, Move Forward, and the new liberal new kid on the block. So the equation, the political equation looks different. It's either or, but now there are varieties, there are more flavors to the plate. So that, I think, is going to be the turning point for Thai politics. I suspect that Pheu Thai will transition towards what I call a more moderate centrist party, whereas the Progressive Party label will be for the newer parties. Now, that could perhaps be the way out for Paetongtarn. She could, for example, try to focus on economic policy, something that Srettha was so adamant about. Digital wallets, injecting cash into the economy, land bridge projects, rebuilding the whole transportation network, not just for Thailand, but for Thailand to be a leader in Southeast Asia. If Paetongtarn successfully carry out those economic pro-investment policy, perhaps the establishment might be happy to let her carry out the role without touching on the sensitive subjects such as less majeste law. But as Sunai pointed out, it's a serious issue. We can't overlook these serious issues. We can't just hide these issues under the carpet. And eventually,
okay, let me bring Sunai back in. Sunai, what do you think of what the international community should do about this? Because some would say, oh, it's an internal matter. And actually the responses to the developments from the Constitutional Court, from the EU and the US have seemed pretty muted. Thailand is supposed to be a candidate for the UN Human Rights Council. Should they be speaking out a bit stronger?
Well, let's not forget, James, that last year, former Prime Minister Srettha went to the UN General Assembly and told the world that this is a new Thailand that respects democratic rule, human rights, and the rule of law. But it has been almost a year. Nothing has improved in those regards at all. Political repression continue to be a daily reality. Arrests continue, imprisonment continue, and the new Prime Minister and her government are likely to follow the footsteps of Srettha, that is to leave out political reform while preaching mainly about economic growth, but there is no achievement in economic growth either. So Thailand is sacrificed political freedom for nothing, and it's clear that appeasement is not working. Srettha himself used appeasement to deal with the establishment. It failed. He is now sacked. Paetongtarn, the new prime minister, is likely to use the same approach, and there is no guarantee of that success either. So what is left for Thailand? Thailand will continue to be a closed, undemocratic or semi-democratic society, as Kun Kasit said.
OK, Kasit, we've mentioned there of the economy. I'd like to touch on the economy briefly at the end, because Thailand, you know, back in 1990, double-digit growth. Many economists say Thailand is not reaching its full potential. Kasit, would you say that is in part because of the constant political upheaval?
Of course, I absolutely agree with you. So we need to have a new democratic constitution. And we need to have political stability. And in order to have the stability, I think three players must sit down at the table. One is the populist Thavisin group. Second is the conservative royalist military establishment. And third, the progressive force, the young, the youth people, and so on. So there should be a sort of a royal commission or something like this, or parliamentary commission, where all the major players come together and to agree on certain basic principles about the structure and the contents of the democratic kingdom of Thailand.
OK, let me just bring you in at the end. After everything that we've discussed, Verapat, do you think it's fair now to say Thailand is a functioning democracy or not? Briefly, please.
It's a semi-functioning, fragile democracy. And I totally agree with Kun Kasit's observation. We need to come to the table and find a peaceful resolution to these long-running problems. And the key is it takes time. And that is something I've been telling the supporters of Move Forward, Future Forward, that Pheu Thai spent 2 decades learning from direct experience. They tried to be liberal at one point. Now they become a bit more conservative. Why is that? Because politics requires adaptation. And whether we can reach to the conclusion that Kun Kasit proposed, that is something that remains to be seen.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you to all our guests today, Kasit Piromya, Verapat Pariyawong and Sunai Phasuk. Watch Al Jazeera for continuing coverage of this story from our correspondent Tony Cheng in Bangkok. You'll also find further analysis on our website, aljazeera.com. If you have a view on the situation in Thailand or on anything else for that matter, find us on Facebook, facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or on the former Twitter, now X. We are at AJ Inside Story. From me, James Bays, and the team here. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.